Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Natasha Chisunka. I'm final year medical student at Lusaka Apex Medical University here in Zambia, and I'm delighted to be your host today. So today the topic is time management. So this is something that everyone has, but somehow it doesn't seem enough. And it just doesn't seem enough. It's like we're all given 24 hours, but it doesn't seem enough. So we've all tried different strategies in planning our day. Others may have downloaded productivity apps, to-do lists, or maybe even gotten a color-coded calendar. So then you're able to tell what you're supposed to do. But somehow at the end of the week, it just doesn't seem as productive or as fulfilling. So with me here today to unpack the topic that we have, which is time management, is Dr. Catherine Muyeba, a lifestyle psychiatrist, addictions and ADHD specialist, leadership coach, speaker, author, and my mentor, Dr. Catherine Muyeba. She is passionate about helping others live healthier, a more purposefully and fulfilling life. So, Dr. Muyeba, it's wonderful to have you today. So, before we dive into the topic today, which is time management, would like to get to know you better and also what inspired your passion for teaching and coaching and helping others.
Okay. Thank you for having this conversation with me. I think it's really, really important that we talk about time. And for me, just a little bit about me, something which I'd always wanted to become a doctor. And I think having that vision and the way that it panned out in my life made me realize the value of time. That if I have set something that needs to happen, I need to make time for it. And maybe along the line, we'll talk a little bit more about the story side of things. But just as a start, first thing I wanted to say about time is that I don't actually believe in managing time because we all get the same amount of time, 24 hours, and it's always moving. It's not waiting for anybody. And when we get that 24 hours, what we're doing with that is not so much about managing it. It's about what we really manage is the attention that we have or the focus, and also the energy that we have, and also the priorities that we have. So then we fix those things into that 24 hours. And I wish we could have 36 hours sometimes, but yeah, time management is about making those intentional choices. Ultimately, it's about choosing how you're going to spend that 24 hours. So regardless of whether you're doing nothing or doing something, that 24 hours will pass and we're not going to get any extra. So the goal is to be intentional so that you use that time to move towards that purpose and mission that we were created for. And an example I always use is, especially now, like since I started like making the YouTube videos, I could spend 2 hours creating a YouTube video, and
Yeah.
that is going to push towards my purpose. It's going to help thousands of women over time, maybe overcome burnout or seek help for the issues that they have, or help someone else because of what they've learned. But also, that 2 hours could be spent completely doing some checking emails, endless emails that never seem to end. So the clock measures in minutes, but then the purpose measures in impact. So how we use that time matters. It matters now, but also matters for the future. So when people ask about time management, the much bigger question is, with the time I have now, what is the highest value I could be using it for? Yeah. So for me, when I ask myself that on each and every day, like at the beginning of the day, how am I going to manage time? It's rather how am I going to manage my attention, my energy, and also my impact. So what value am I going to add to the different times?
Okay. Now, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Your explanation actually dives into my next question. In your own words, what does time management mean to you?
I think to me, like I've said, it's about the same amount of time that we have. So managing that is managing what I'm going to do with it, really. It's a decision problem for me. That's what I think. So it's about the choices I will make. And in a nutshell, like the things I've already said about, it's more about the energy and the focus and my priorities. That's basically what time management means to me. Yeah.
And what are the biggest mistakes people make today with their time?
hmm hmm I think these are mistakes I've also made over the years, and I've learned. And as I grow older, as I become wiser, as I reflect and learn on the mistakes, one of the biggest mistakes, as I see, that we often make is believing that everything deserves equal attention. And it
Yes.
doesn't. It doesn't deserve equal attention. Ironing tea towels or socks doesn't deserve the same attention as sitting down to focus on something which a high pair of value. And another mistake sometimes we make is confusing being busy, that
Yeah.
busyness, the rat race, hamster in the wheel kind of life, to being productive. We can be all that, but not productive. So it's really important that we realize that. I've worked with lots of professional women and others who work, maybe max out the time in the day, 12 hours, 80 hours a week, but never seem to make that meaningful progress in their life or on their projects, where they can look back. This is where I genuinely am based on all the hours I've put in. So that's another mistake that I see. And another one being, a common trap, trying to remember everything. I always say, our brains, I look at it as real estate. Sometimes there's not enough real estate there to try and put everything in and remember. So take
Yeah.
that out of the brain. They are brilliant, our brains, with being creative and generating ideas, but they are not good at storing information. Certainly, it's not endless. The storage capacity is not endless. And therefore, we need to find a way of processing that, because when we try to put everything in our brain, it takes time to get those. Like, say for example, you've stored the file on the computer and then now you're looking for it. It can take time to find it, isn't it? So similarly, the
Yeah.
brain. But if we learn to save time by storing things outside of our brain, it's so much easier then to recall, because you can just go to it, find it, and use it. So I'm a big fan of calendars, and yes, the digital stuff is good, but I
Yeah.
think some of the times I'm going back to the analogs, the calendars, constant reminders, planners, and just systems, so that our brains are left free to think and be creative, instead of trying to focus all the energy on not forgetting. And therefore, when we have those external reminders, we're not taking too much time, wasting time. Another way where we make mistakes and lose time. And then the other thing is about scheduling. Sometimes we schedule every available minute of the day, so that there's never ever time room for ourselves to do other things. Something I call margin. When you have to do things that you want to focus on that day, leave some space to think. Because something I think sometimes thinking is underrated. But when we schedule, let's leave room for thinking, and for walking, and for dancing, or whatever the case might be. And some of my very creative ideas have come through that time, the margin, maybe whether it's 15 minutes, I just take a brisk walk and an idea has come. Maybe an idea has come on something that I've been really trying to resolve, but it has come through that margin where I've just gone for a drive and think things through. I've gone, maybe sat somewhere and just people watch. An idea will come, and just allowing that margin and time to
Yeah.
reflect. So it's not wasting time. When we have that space in our schedule, in our diaries, it's not wasted time. And it's often where that wisdom appears.
Yes, that's true. No, I agree with that. And something that you just said right now is having equal attention, being an understanding that being busy is also not being productive with your time, and also leaving room for different activities. So, how can someone prioritize their tasks to know what is important and what isn't important? What comes first and what comes second?
Yeah, yeah. So it boils down to what I was saying before about purpose. Why am I here? What am I doing? What do I want to achieve? And I think when we are clear about that, I mean, it doesn't always have to be 100%, and sometimes you may not fully know, but what is the next thing? But when you have a vision for your life, a vision for your career, a vision for different things, then you almost work back to front. I love to envision. I would love to see the end in mind so that all my activities align up to that end. So it's always important to ask myself these questions. Does what I need to do move me towards that vision, towards that dream? The next question is, this thing that I need to do, am I the only person who can do it? Yeah, or can
Yes.
somebody else do it? And will it matter? In, say, for instance, when I sit back looking at my year, will this thing matter right now in a year's time? So when I answer those questions, it's become so much easier to decide then what to do. So when something is in front of me, I ask those questions, then it helps me decide. But at the same time, I have a diary, obviously, and I have what I call my ideal week, so that I don't just focus on the things which are urgent or other people's urgencies or just my work or just my job, my business or just my family or just my church. I don't just focus on one or two of the well, at the expense of the others. I have what I call my ideal diary. What does my ideal week look like? What does Catherine do on Mondays in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening? And then schedule all these so that you put all those activities in or responsibilities. And when they're in there, it removes that friction. Okay, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to focus on this. And even prioritizing becomes easier, because if it's a Monday morning and I've set Monday morning to focus on maybe completing all my clinical admin, when something comes up which somebody wants us to go for afternoon tea, maybe that I don't have to struggle about making that
Yeah.
decision. Prioritizing becomes easy because in my diary, this is what I do on Mondays. Obviously, life happens and there's some inflexibility in that, but having that ideal week for the different days of the week, morning and afternoon, and what I do. When is it that I have date nights with my husband? When is it that I make time for my kids? When is it that I make sure I have that meet up Monday, the girlfriend time? All that helps me in terms of making decisions, and the people who are close to me get to know. Even at work, they know that on these days I do clinics, and therefore it's not a good time for me to have meetings. But on these days, I set aside for any ad hoc things that can happen. On these days, my focus is in this area, so I don't like to take requests from other areas. But with some flexibility, reasonable flexibility around that, it does help us a lot to prioritize then when things come to you that way.
Yes. No, I completely agree. And it also dives into my follow-up question. But what I got from what you just explained was it's important to have goals and
Hmm.
tactics on how to manage your week, your day, and everything that comes. Even if you set specific goals for that day, it wouldn't hurt if something changes.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yes, I understand that.
yeah.
So my next question, which is, I think you've answered it. It was to create. How can someone create their daily routine, or maybe we can add on to it, or systems to help us stay organized for the week, to stay consistent, because it's
Yeah.
easy to get distracted.
Yes,
Yes.
definitely. Distraction is easy. Like I said at the beginning about time, not so much about managing time, but our energy, our focus, and our priorities. So I know the times when I'm most energetic, when I'm most alert, when I'm most focused, and then I know tasks in my life that need more focused time, that need my mental energy. So
Mm.
I schedule those things in those times. For me, it's early in the morning, 6:30 in the morning. I'm wide awake. And
Yes.
thankfully, Costa Coffee opens at that time. That's my
Mhm.
second home. I'll go in there first thing in the morning and I'll do almost like a day's work between 6:30 and 9, so that when
Yes.
the rest of the work world opens up, I'll have done, a big chunk of my stuff. Those emails don't stop coming, but at
Mhm.
least they're not coming at a time when I'm, my most energetic and deep focused work. So I will
Mhm.
check like my emails over the days and skim out things which are urgent. But then at the end of the day, that when maybe my energy levels are down, that's when I'll do those tasks that don't require a lot of
Yes.
my energy. So
Yes.
that's how I schedule. So I look at the week, and I've shared this with you. Like every Sunday evening, do the weekly review. Look at the
Mhm.
last week. What went well? What could I have done different? And then what do I want to achieve for the following week? Set maybe 1 to 3 things which I really, really want to achieve that week, and then schedule
Mhm.
them. So put them into the blocks of time which I've allocated for different things.
Yes.
Um, and then once that is done, then get going.
Mhm.
So Monday comes, we know exactly what we're doing on Monday when we wake up.
Mhm.
Again, with a degree of flexibility, there's
Mhm.
things that come up, but when life happens like that, you are less likely to be pushed completely off course if you have
Mhm.
a schedule. So maybe
Yes.
that day or a few hours might be completely off course, but then you
Mhm.
know exactly where to pick up from. And
Yes.
sometimes the scheduling is such that what is the next big thing?
Mhm.
There are times when you can't really, it feels like you can't really do anything. But then
Mhm.
what is the just one thing that you can do next? What is
Mhm.
the one thing that you can do next? And then just do that. And then
Yes.
the next thing, then the next thing. And then if you remember the questions I was asking, who else can do this? Because
Yeah.
we forget. So when I'm doing my Sunday setup, I'll look in the things that I need to accomplish, checking who can do this so that I
Mhm.
don't have to do them myself. And
Yes.
if it's sort of work, I've got colleagues who are trained to do certain things. So I'll allocate those responsibilities to them. If it's in my personal life or my business, which family member can help? What can my personal assistant help with? Who can I buy the service from so that I
Yes.
buy back my time, so that I
Mhm.
expand those 24 hours, so to speak, because I
Yes.
don't have to do everything. When we add
Mhm.
value to our hour, how much kwachas is your hour? If
Mhm.
something else can do the same uh, activity or action for less than the value of my hour, then give it to them, and maybe they might even love to do it more than I do.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's just that's how I schedule. That's how I try to optimize the time so that I can work less but do more.
Mhm. Yes. No, I like that. I like the statement, buy back your time.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's important to understand that we can't do everything. So we
Hmm.
have to pick specific areas in our life where we can plan certain things and do them, and the rest we can ask someone to do it for us.
Yes,
I
yes. And
also
I was just going to say, when I read that book about buy back your time, it
yes.
just took the guilt completely out because so I live in the UK, and in the UK it can be quite expensive to buy services like
Yes.
cleaning,
Mm-hmm.
ironing and stuff like that. Whereas in
Mm-hmm.
Zambia, everyone has people who help, and it's there's less friction with that. So when I read
Yes.
that book, I was just like, yeah, even if I'm going to spend this kind of money, in the
Mm-hmm.
grand scheme of things, it's going to save me this amount of money. And even if
Yes.
it's just to buy rest time, you
Mm-hmm.
have already spoken about how those moments where you have margin to think can
Mm-hmm.
create something which is so full of wisdom and it's going to help yourself and other people. So yeah, so when I read that book about buy back your time, it was so
Mm-hmm.
liberating. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. No, that's very nice. The other thing that you also pointed out was understanding when you're your best self, when in the sense of being energetic. Which
Yes.
time can you prioritize your big goals and your small goals? So if you explained how you're a morning person, I'm
Yeah.
also a morning person too. I prefer the morning. It's more productive actually. Yes.
Mm.
And to also understand that being flexible is something important. Don't be so rigid. You can go off course, but understand how you can come back.
Yeah.
I like that.
Mm.
Okay, so
Excellent.
so my final question is, if you could leave a message for the audience, what would it be and why about our topic today, which is time?
I think the most important thing is time is always moving,
Mm-hmm.
and it will not wait for you. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really, really important that we prioritize. And as a
Mm-hmm.
starting point, have a goal, have a vision. What's the vision for your life? Why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I doing this course? Why am I doing this job? And when we know that, then it makes it so much easier, because then it's not so much about how will I manage the time. It's
Mm-hmm.
how will I accomplish what I want to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And always starting with the end in mind. I think Stephen Covey wrote that book, about starting with the end in mind. When we know what the end looks like, and I'm a proper daydreamer from my teenage years, and I think I'll use that as an example. Really, for my teenage years, I wanted to become a doctor, and I would vividly see myself in that role. I would just live in it, be it, act it, breathe
Mm-hmm.
it, do everything. And to the extent where it became so much part of who I am that there was absolutely no way of removing that from me. But what it
Mm-hmm.
also did was that it helped me make decisions and made me help me use my time wisely. So that
Mm-hmm.
if there were two things or three things which were competing, it was no
Mm-hmm.
brainer. That was my end. Therefore, this
Yeah.
is what takes priority. And the
Mm-hmm.
ultimate thing which I would encourage everyone is have a vision, have a purpose. What are you doing with your life? And then the other things then become much, much better to sort out. And
Mm-hmm.
was there anything else? Not everything has to be done, have a not to do list. I think,
Yes.
yeah, make sure that you do that. You can say no, and it should get easier and easier to say no. And I know, depending on the level of work or career we are, that's difficult, but have a way of communicating that, because
Mm-hmm.
ultimately we are in that pandemic where burnout is
Mm-hmm.
huge. So we have to manage our energy, we have to manage our life, and we have to manage how we spend the time that we have for that purpose, that vision, with others, delegating as much as possible. But
Mm-hmm.
remember that wisdom as well, margin is important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I actually like the statement you used with the word burnout, because
Mm.
most of us burn out because we don't understand how to prioritize our goals and also to implement certain tactics into our
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
And also the point of having a vision and a purpose in life. You just don't wake up and you go about your day. What is
Hmm.
it that you want to do today? What comes first? What comes second?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes, I like that. This comes to the end of our video. It was nice having you. And I'm sure anyone listening can relate to everything that you said.
Hmm.
So I appreciate you for your time and thank you
Hmm.
so much for the insights in
Hmm.
time management.
Hmm. Oh,
Yes.
thank you. I know it's a really huge subject, so we've sort
Yes.
of just scratched on the surface, but even
Yes.
that is better
Hmm.
than nothing. And then we
Hmm.
can pick up on that. Thank
Yes.
you.
Now, thank you so much for today.
Thank you.